Hello guys, TKG's here for your comfortable LostArk life. Today, I'd like to cover the recent updates in the KR region. Recently, another major event took place, the balance patch. Along with this balance patch in LostArk KR, a few negative developments have surfaced, which seems to be making the current atmospheres even worse. In fact, you could say that it has further highlighted the incompetence of the development teams. Anyway, in today's videos, I'll be covering exactly what has happened recently in LostArk KR. Recently, a lot of my videos have mainly focused on the current complaints coming out. Honestly, that's because it's just so hard to find any positive opinion these days. I'd like to at least share some update news with you, but even the feedback on those updates is overwhelmingly negative. Actually, the biggest issue right now is this balance update. Balance updates are always welcome, of course. Still, balance has always been a chronic problem in LostArk. And at the same time, it is one of the main things fueling the ongoing imbalance. What's different now compared to the past is the presence of uncontrollable balance factors, like Ark Grid. As I mentioned in previous videos, you can officially build up to 500 combinations with Ark Grid. Yes, you heard that right. 500 possible combinations. Of course, not all Ark Grid combinations are actually used, so the practical numbers is smaller. But the fact remains that there are still a ton of combinations. And this update only added fuel to the fires, with even more people saying things like it's out of controls, and it feels like it wasn't tested enough. First of all, the same goes for the numerical adjustments. To be honest, this time, the balance changes were not only highly inconsistent, but the numbers themselves were extremely drastic. The real issue is that these problems were left unaddressed for an entire month. It is hard to believe that the developers didn't realize how erratic these balance changes were until the patch was actually released. That's just absurd. So to put it simply, these were not your typical tweaks of around 1% to 10%. Shockingly, some adjustments were in the range of 20% to 30%. For certain stats like stagger, the changes were almost as high as 70%, which is extremely excessive. On top of that, even though the community was well aware and there were even videos showing that certain classes were performing at an overpowered level, nothing was done for over a month. Ironically, some classes were nerfed by more than 20%, not just once, but twice, and yet they still remain in the top tier. To be honest, the structural changes made to Gun Lancer were at least a positive step. But the problem is, there are still so many classes that desperately need these kind of structural adjustments, and yet the developers sit back and say they are collecting data without actually doing anything. The real problem with this neglect is that it ultimately encourages discrimination and disparity between classes. Recently, well, honestly, it's not even just recently. In both new raid and raids events, you can clearly see certain class preference at play in almost every party. Simply put, classes that are favored in party play can easily find raid groups, but those that are less popular not only struggle to join raids, but are basically stuck endlessly circling the party lobby labeled as unwanted pick. What's really ironic is that if you put together a party with, say, 3 or more of these less preferred classes, the very reason for this party composition causes even the favored classes to avoid joining it. As a result, most people just end up giving up after a long wait. Balance issues have always been a persistent problem in LostArk because it is such a chronic issue. It makes sense to monitor and gradually fix it over time. However, I feel like something different needs to be done now. Plus, I vaguely recall hearing in past stream that frequent balance patches would be implemented to adjust class balance, but I honestly have no idea when these frequent balance adjustments are actually happening. On top of that, this balance patch was shockingly disappointing because it left those standout OP characters untouched for more than a month before finally making any updates. And that's really the main issue here. If I try to be generous, okay, OP characters, that can happen. Failed balance adjustments, that can happen too. But the problem is that this lasted for an entire month. 1 month. So players had to endure this failed balance patch for more than a month before seeing any revised stats and balance. That's honestly what worries me most. It's not even just about anything else. The game's overall balance is unstable right now, and yet they are supposed to spend a month gathering balance-related stats, collecting data, and then proceed with more patches. In other words, players have to live with this failed balance patch for a month, and those who play on popular classes are forced to endure this unreasonable system. To be honest, I'm really starting to wonder if this is actually the right approach. So, as a bit of self-deprecating joke, people are saying that if you want your class to be properly adjusted, don't invest in your own characters. Just pick up popular streamers and recommend your class to them instead. Because apparently, that's the only way to get changes. Honestly, it's just ridiculous how things have gotten now. And to discuss something a bit different from the earlier balance issues, it is clear that the player base in LostArk KL is steadily decreasing. What stands out most is that this decline is especially noticeable among mid and low-level players. For example, as I show in the previous videos, this is actually the current state of weekend raid parties, which is quite surprising. Of course, this mainly applies to learning or tribe parties, but honestly is still shocking. Even Behemoths, which is considered a pretty good raid for earning gold, become hard to find parties for after the weekly reset on Wednesday. So, to be honest, I asked a few people about this, and most said that these random elements are main reason they lose motivation to keep playing. When it comes to character progression, almost everything is random. Transcendence, that's random. Elixirs, random. Cars, not only random, but you even spend real money on them. Advanced zoning, while it is a decent progression system, it still depends on specific probabilities. So the timing of success can vary a lot. And of course, that also costs money. Cutting stone, random, karma. Honestly, karma is designed as a goal sink, so if you keep relying on luck, you will just end up draining all your gold before you know it. Then, once you finally get through all these hurdles, there's another random element called Ark Grid, and hardly anyone has the patience to endure all of this. Especially as I mentioned in the previous videos, if there's no past event, it is honestly a structure that's almost impossible to survive in. Even the most dedicated players find it hard to start over and deal with all this again without any help. It's just too much. The situation was already bad because of the balance issues, but leaving this random system untouched seems to cause the player base to shrink even more, both at the top and bottom. Honestly, this is something that comes up frequently in the community, and seeing these problems persist make it feel pretty hopeless. These opinions really do reflect how people feel. Even in the Korean community, more and more players are starting to think LostArk's time might be coming to an end, especially with other subculture games and MMORPGs and even LostArk Mobile in developments. If the game keeps sticking with these toxic system, well, I don't know anymore. Maybe it really is time to let go of this game. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and always, thanks for your big support. Hope this video was still a help for your LostArk journey. And of course, if you like my videos, hit the sub for more upcoming infos. I'll come back with more useful infos in the next video.